All right, welcome to Culture Couch Live this week. Carly, Mark, how are we going?
Hi, Rosie. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Going well, Carl. It's going well, Rosie.
Excellent. Very, very good. All right, let's get straight into it. So we both, or all of us got sent recently a bit of documentation as we sort of shoot around the PBD team. And it was about what surprised me. I don't know, and I'll ask you two whether it surprised you as well. It was about this talent shortage that's now going on in the corporate world, which again, the reason it sort of surprised me was probably, I mean, we all think of AI taking jobs and so forth, but there was some quite stark data around people just not being able to find, Carly, people to fill their jobs. So it was actually quite stark. What was the thing that stuck out for you, firstly?
Well, obviously during COVID, we saw things change, and there was all the documentation around the Great Resignation, and people are making life changes, and things changed quite a bit there, and there was a lot of jobs opening. But from everything we've heard from our clients, I felt that had sort of returned to normal a little bit past COVID. So I was quite surprised to see that, the stat that we're seeing here is that for every role that's required, 75% of employers are really struggling to fill the role with the required skills. So yeah, I was surprised by that. I thought it would have gone back down to more kind of neutral levels since the pandemic.
Yeah, the 75% mark's a high figure. And before we got on air, we sort of touched on that. I guess we're not really sure what the questions are. Like when, anytime you fill out a survey, sometimes you can push it in a certain direction, but that was a high figure. So what are your thoughts around why specifically do you think people can't fill jobs at the moment?
Want me to jump in there? Was that me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Mark. Oh, you're Mark. Your name's Mark.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So I thought when you said the 90% mark, I was like, is that triggering me? Or that was good. sorry to the viewers at home. A bit slow off the mark this morning. Pardon the pun. Mate, to be honest, there's been a huge rush post-COVID, it feels like, to push people into middle management. And why that is, there's been probably a big movement of people to entrepreneurship, to own their own business. And so that probably would have taken away a few people or some decent talent from the workforce, particularly at that upper end. So I think there's been this massive rush to push people up from lower level jobs or not even management into management level or even middle management or senior management positions without leadership training. So they've got great technical skills, they can do their job, and everyone's looking around going, who's the next leader? And it tends to be those people that are best at their job, not necessarily the people that are living out the behaviours or the values of the business or building capability amongst their own teams. So I think there's been this huge rush, but then it hasn't been the follow-up in the leadership training. And that's probably what we're seeing, particularly with a lot of the appointments that we're getting in the workplace at the moment, is probably more around that middle management to sort of lower level senior managers.
It's right, Carly, isn't it? It's funny coming from an industry as in football, and I did work for 20 years and put a couple of companies on the map, as you two well know, how good an employee I was.
Thank you, Rosie.
But I'm going to focus on my football, which is an industry that develops people. That's basically what we are. We're an industry that develops people. Now, clearly we develop them for the game and all that sort of stuff, but I've been really surprised, Carly, that most companies, to Mark's point, talk about developing their people, but don't really do it. So I wonder, out of that 75%, how much is we can't find anyone internally or even externally because no one's really training their staff well enough to be able to fill some of those jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes back to what you're looking for. So when you do a job ad, and we've all, put job ads together, you say, I want a marketing person and these are the skills I want them to be able to do. But that's the hard skills. And I don't really like the term soft skills because I think they're so important. But it's so much harder to understand the right questions to ask, the right way to frame it in a job ad and what you're actually looking for. Because this report we're looking at from Manpower says the number one skills people are looking to employ are collaboration and teamwork. So, that's what we do. We come in and teach people to be leaders, and we teach them to collaborate better and to, drive performance as a team. But when you're in an interview situation, How do you answer that question? How do you address it? And I think people don't really know the right things to look for. But to your point, Ruzi, you know, leadership is role modeling, and we say that all the time. But if you don't know what you're role modeling, then how is anyone else going to learn from that or develop from that if it's ambiguous? And I think that's what makes it so impactful, the work we do, is that we take the ambiguity out of it so that people understand what it looks like.
Yeah, which gets back to Mark. It's funny, like the collaboration teamwork is, I mean, without sounding like an advertisement for performance by design, but it is what we do, isn't it? So what's your advice if you're a CEO or in leadership and you're watching this Culture Couch live and you are in the middle of a shortage of trying to get, you've got 5 or 6 jobs that are vacant. Well, where's the starting point? What can they start to look at and go, okay, we're going to take ownership of this, all right, and we're going to do something about it. Where do I start?
Yeah, it's a great point. And probably want to bring up to your point, Carl, I agree, the soft skills notion is probably undervalued. And I think Simon Sinek uses the notion of human skills. Yeah. So it's the things that we're not necessarily technically good at, but it takes care, empathy, all these things that we talk about. So to answer your question, Ruzi, I think it's being really clear on who you are. If you're clear as a business on who you are, and we say that is a set of values. So how do we want to be seen by the outside world? And how do we want to be seen by our competitors? How do we want to be seen by our clients and our customers? But also, are you clear on what the notion of behavior or behavioral framework, which is what we do at PBD, so people can start to act their way in or act their way out? And I'll tell a quick story of a business that I ran previous to joining PBD. And I use the PBD system to build the workforce there. And I guarantee every single job or every single interview that I had, we didn't speak about the technical skills required for that job. It was, this is who we are. Are you aligned to this? If you are, jump on board and we'll push it together. And that was the only way I could build that workforce, because it was a pretty complex sort of space where you had creatives, you had commercial people. I suppose it's probably like a lot of other businesses, but building it from the ground up, we had to have a really clear path. We had to have a really clear what we stood for. And that allowed us to attract the right talent. And particularly during COVID, when it was really hard to attract talent away from high-paying jobs that they were pretty safe in. So that, my advice would be really clear on who you are, and then lean into that when you start to go and attract talent. But the other thing is retaining talent. You've got to retain your good talent. You've got to find out what your staff need. You've got to find out what motivates them, and you've got to be able to deliver that, whether it's on an individual basis, because ultimately that's going to form or feed back into the team.
I think, Carly, everything we're talking about goes back to the controllable for any company is your internal leadership development, technical training program. And the analogy I would use, imagine if you were barracking for, I know Benny's a massive doggies fan, so let's talk about the dogs. Imagine if your poor husband was barracking for the doggies and all they did was turn up on the weekend to play and they did nothing during the week. It's a disaster. Now that's an exaggeration, but that's what we're seeing, really, isn't it? In a lot of companies, we're seeing that just turn up for work, and we're probably seeing a lot of staff going, well, I want to turn up for work. I want to get better. I want to understand about collaborative and teamwork, but I don't know where to find it. Help me. Is that too harsh or not?
Oh, it's an interesting perspective, and this comes back to the need for leaders to coach, mentor, guide, which, as we talked about before, is emotional intelligence, which I think is really important. But I think the middle managers are the ones, like Mark said earlier, that are struggling, because they're now, that layer, and we generally are in the office 2 days a week, perhaps, or more or less, but whatever. But they're still in charge of getting all the work done, hitting all the deadlines, setting all the expectations, and they then need to manage everyone under them, but they're not seeing anyone above them to teach them how to do it or to coach them or to guide them. And I think that's what you're talking about, Ruzi, is how do we put systems in place to keep up the coaching and the mentoring and the guiding to get the behaviours where we want them to be as a business if we're not in the same space learning from each other. So it's a really tricky one. So I don't know, Marco, if you've got any advice on that, but I think that's where we really need to focus our energy.
Yeah, I think as an extension of what you and I have both said, it's are you the leader you wish you had? Because
Yeah.
often we get into these leadership positions and all we do is focus on being on the tools, the stuff that we're really comfortable with, because we haven't been given leadership training. So we're just doing what leaders before us have also done, as opposed to really thinking about what is it that I would have wanted as a leader, and how can I then go and deliver that? And if I don't know and I don't have it, then how can I ask the business for help to be able to upskill me and bring some training in? So it's being really honest with yourself as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, but no one has time
Yeah.
to think about that, Ruzi. No one even goes, oh, maybe I need to think about how I am as a leader. Unless someone like us comes in and actually poses the hard questions, people don't even really make the time to think about it themselves, I don't think, Paul.
Well, I mean, you've seen it. We literally do that exercise, Mark, don't we? Are you the leader you wish you had? And you can see in the room, you can see the body language change. You can see the eyes going, and you can see it's almost like the thought bubble in the cartoon, isn't it? Am I? Everyone's got this, am I? And you're right. It's like, because we get into a position, we sort of do the role as best we can, but we never think about we're actually servicing. I used to say this all the time. The only reason I exist as a coach was to make the players better. That was, if you were to write a job description, that was it. That's the only reason that I existed. I didn't exist. If there weren't players, I didn't have a job. I couldn't go into work and just coach. You know, you've got to have a group of people to lead. So if you have a group of people to lead, then you have to think about, Mark, are you the leader you wish you had? And on that, I just wanted to finish off, because we hear emotional intelligence a lot. And I almost feel like that's the key to unlocking this leadership. But a lot of people, like anything else, like I think sometimes when we talk about psychological safety or vulnerability or collaborating, people don't really understand, well, yeah, but what does it mean in the workplace? So let's just finish off with exploring, what does an emotional intelligent leader look like, Carly? What are some of the skills? Because you asked me before we got on the call, can we learn emotional intelligence? I said, yes, we can. Absolutely. So let's help people out there to define it. And then if they haven't got some of these things, to go out and learn them. What would the 2 or 3 be? And I'm going to ask both of you the same question.
Yeah. Yeah, well, self-awareness, absolutely. So if you know what you're good at, you know what your strengths are, and you can understand the same of others. So who you're working with, what their strengths are and what their areas for growth are, you can support them better and you can help them better and you can coach them better. So you know, our insights profiling tool is amazing for that. And every time we do the workshop, like you say, those thought bubbles or those aha moments happen every single time, because everyone knows what they're good at instinctively, but no one actually has the conversation. So really having that conversation to understand, I think, is really, really powerful for emotional intelligence.
So Mark, just for you to finish off, what's another one under that emotional intelligence banner?
Yeah, I'm going to go after the big empathy piece. And again, it's probably I say this a lot because it's a growth for me in particular and my journey. But it's that, again, asking for help, but really understanding your people. Like ask them the question: what motivates them? What do they need? Again, if you're of service to what you said before, Rosie, you need to ask the questions, because you can't make assumptions on what your people need. If you don't know and you're not having that question, and it leads into what you said as well, Carly, around having open conversations. You got to have the conversation, because if you walk around assuming, you're only going to assume from the way that you see the world. And we know through insights, and we know through psychometric profiling, we know through a lot of the work we do, everyone's got a different experience in life. So all very, very different. We see the world different. So unless you take the time to really understand where they're coming from, you're never going to build a team, because you're only ever going to do things from your own view.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to finish off by saying, as you said before, Mark, I think the good way to benchmark yourself at the end of every day, are you the leader you wish you had today? Did you serve the people today? Not did you have a good day yourself? Are you the leader you wish you had? And it's such a good way. And for me, when I wrote that down, did the 25 points in October 1998, and I wrote it through the eyes of a player. So I wrote it through the eyes of someone that was getting coached. And what did I need as a player? What did I either get or what did I miss out on? It was by far the best document I wrote in October 1998. And I wrote it down, the things I liked about the leaders, the things I didn't like about the leaders. And I had it in my desk for 8.5 years at Sydney. It was the first document I pulled out when I went to the Melbourne Football Club. So I would finish with that. Are you the leader you wish you had today and mark yourself at the end of every day. Because we do get busy, Carly, like you said. It's
Yeah.
easy to get caught up in the X's and O's and wins and losses, et cetera, but you are there for the people, to serve the people, Mark, as you said. So really great conversation.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well done. Good question. Good documents. I think we dissected it well. So I'm pretty much a 10 out of 10 today for you too, I reckon. What do you think?
Geez, I'll tell you, I will never want to be perfect, Reece. There's always some little area for growth. So
Yeah,
We'll let the viewers,
appreciate the confidence.
great self-awareness from Mark there, Carly.
we'll let the viewers decide, Ruzi. We'll ask them for some feedback.
Oh, well done. Good emotional intelligence. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Culture Couch Live. We'll see you all next week. Thanks a lot.